Welcome to another episode of mine where I get you some tips from people around the world. This time, I'm going to introduce you to one of the best Americans that I have ever known. She's so intellectual. She is involved with Toastmaster and has been a public speaking coach for a very long time. She's here to give us some tips on how to master communication skills and accent. Hey, how are you?
I'm great. It's been a week and I'm glad my work week is over. How are you?
I am likewise so happy to meet you here. I was very excited for this interview since we discussed scheduled it.
Of course.
Like I asked you some questions. Yeah.
I was just saying thank you for interviewing me.
You are very nice for this interview. You are very intellectual. You have so much to share with people.
Of course, you're very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. So like I asked you a series of questions on how to improve pronunciation and communication skills. So my first question is to you. Like you said, I don't know how many. Do you have any idea how many words you use per day?
Probably close to 100,000.
100,000.
Well, because I talk on the phone for a living, so I'm constantly calling people, receiving calls. I'm in meetings with managers. So I talk more than the average person does because that's what I have to do for my job.
Cool. So I know not everybody, not everybody knows every word. So do you also struggle to, use a proper word, or you just have every word in your mind?
I have different series of different sets of words for different situations. When I'm working, I have scripts that I follow. I'm also more formal at work. With my husband and with my friends, I'm less formal. And with older people like my mother-in-law, I tend to use the words that they're using. I tend to talk more like they do. For example, my husband and I are going to go see his parents tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, and his parents are older. They're in their 80s. And so I don't use as much slang with them. I'm a little more formal like I would be at work.
Cool. So do you think, I have seen a whole lot of people, trying to learn the language so desperately. At the same time, they are trying to learn, slangs. So what pieces of advice would you give them? Is it okay to learn slangs or it is not okay?
I think it's best to start with formal language first, because formal language may seem out of place when you're talking with your friends, but if you're talking to someone like a manager at work or an older person, formal language will show respect. And so I think it's better to learn formal language first. And then once a person has mastered formal language, then start with slang. But also slang is different depending on the country and the area of the country.
I noticed you have changed your glasses today.
Oh, these are the same ones I wore last time.
Oh, I'm not
wearing eyeshadow. That's the difference.
Oh yeah. What do
I
you
was
mean by
wearing eyeshadow
eyeshadow?
last week for my choir performance. So
Yeah. So didn't you go for your performance today?
no, I didn't have a performance today. In fact, I have the rest of the year off from choir. So I'm glad for that. We'll start back up in January,
Mhm.
and then our next performance will be in March.
March. Oh, cool, cool. So, would you also like to give some pieces of advice on how to improve accent?
To improve accent.
Yeah.
So I think it's best to learn from speakers in a person's home country, model how they speak first, and then compare how they speak with how native speakers speak, and adopt an accent that's similar between the two. A person that is from one country will probably never 100% sound like they're from another. But I think just listening to how people speak, using a lot of YouTube videos, also using pronunciation apps like Duolingo, I think can definitely help.
Tell me one thing. Have you ever tried to imitate somebody?
Have I tried to imitate somebody?
Yeah, imitate.
Yes, actually. I wasn't doing it to make fun of them or tease them.
Mhm.
I had a Japanese teacher named Sensei Morishige,
Mhm.
and she was teaching me how to write in Japanese letters. And she was sounding out the syllables very slowly, and I imitated how she did it. She was trying to teach me how to say shigoto, which is, I think, business. And she sounded out the syllables very slowly, and I imitated her. And then she started going faster, and I went faster as well until I could say the word shigoto.
Cool, cool. So my another question is, how a kid born in America learns how to speak English. I know the first way of learning is by listening to his or her parents. Anything else? I mean, other than this, do you help him with something?
So you're asking how a person born in America learns to speak English?
Yeah.
Well, definitely it starts with the parents. We're also taught English in school. We're taught how to read and do our letters in the early elementary school years. Then in third grade, which is about 8 or 9, we have to take a reading test. And then we learn things such as diagramming sentences, taking apart sentences. And then in high school, which is ages 14 to 18, a person has to take an English class every year that they're in high school. They start off with reading various works, and then they write papers on them, book reports. We also write a lot of different types of essays, such as persuasive essays, descriptive essays. All that writing gives a person a greater grasp of the English language.
Cool. So, what would you suggest if I have a son or a daughter? Would you suggest? How should I teach them the language, the English language? What new should I use
I think just speaking to them at home
in English?
in English, but also don't forget your native language.
Mhm.
A lot of people make the mistake of only teaching their sons and daughters English.
Mhm.
There is great value in knowing both languages. And I highly recommend using both. Like the word for book, teaching them the word for book in English and in Hindi. And a lot of families that are bilingual, they'll do stuff like speak Hindi at home, speak English when we go out, or speak Hindi this time of day, speak English this time of day, or we'll do if you do any religious instruction, we'll do our religious instruction in this language and do this in English. There's different ways of teaching English, but I think it's very important to teach it alongside the native language.
According to you, what is the most difficult part for a non-native learner to learn when it comes to learn the English language?
Mm, the different ways of spelling. There are so many different ways to spell words, and not every rule of spelling is the same. There are words that have silent letters, but spelled the same for other words. Those letters are not silent. Not every word follows the same structure for plural. There's a lot of words that don't make sense, such as apartments. Apartments are close together, but they're called apartments.
Apartment. Yeah.
Yes,
Alternate.
but they're close together, you know?
Yeah.
So just figuring out a lot of other languages, you know, words are spelled the same way.
You know,
But in English, there's not really a pattern for
the
how
way
words are
you
spelled.
explain things to me, or you explain normally, you must be a teacher.
No, I'm not a teacher. uh, no, I'm not a teacher. I would like to train people at work, but no, I'm not a teacher. My dad was a teacher though. My dad taught for over 20 years and he taught English.
Cool. Like you mentioned in our last interview, because of him you were able to learn grammar. You know, that's the reason why you do not make any grammatical mistake when speaking.
I'm always afraid he's going to jump out of his grave and haunt me for that.
Cool, cool. So, you know, I have also heard, but not sure about it, how true it is, how true it is. People in United States, there are 50 states, and every state they have different accent. Is it true?
I wouldn't say every state has a different accent, but every region has a different accent, definitely.
What do you mean by region? I don't know that.
So you have the New England states, such as Maine, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York. They kind of sound the same. They have a regional accent. And then the West Coast states, California, Oregon, Washington, they have their own accent. The southern states where I live, that would encompass Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Mississippi, Georgia, Arkansas, Missouri, well, not Missouri, but Louisiana, they have kind of a regional sounding accent. Now, certain states may have a more distinctive accent than others, such as Louisiana. They have a lot of Creole, which has French and Cajun tones to it. And then the states that are near the Appalachian Mountains, they have kind of a different sort of accent. People in the northern part of the states that border Canada tend to have a different accent as well. But each individual state doesn't necessarily have their own accent. Some people have said that they can tell I'm from Oklahoma and others can't. So
Yeah, people, anchoring on CNN, they tend to use different kind of accent. So what accent that is? That is called standard one?
well, the accent I have, you mean?
Hmm?
So okay, I tend to imitate the style of whomever I'm listening to.
Mhm.
It's something I do subconsciously. I can't help it.
Can you
If
imitate
I'm
me?
if I listen to you long enough, I would start to adopt some of how you're speaking.
Okay, do you think I know my pronunciation is not up to the mark, right? I need to work a little more to be, up to the mark, to be able to sound like a native in that I don't want. I want to be me, right?
Yeah, you want to be you.
Yeah.
Yes, you've you've got a lot of it down. You stress your accents of words, the different parts of words in similar ways. You pause at the right times. I can tell that you're not a native speaker from the US, but I can't tell that you're not a native English speaker.
Mhm.
So, as far as I'm concerned, you could have grown up somewhere else, but merely learned English as your first language.
Yeah, I have been teaching English for 7 years now, and I believe in last 7 years I practiced every single day. So that's what helped me, speak English so well.
You speak it very well. I understand you perfectly. In fact, I understand you better than some native English speakers. Some people with really heavy accents in the US, like very heavy Southern drawls, I don't understand them as well. And the New York, Boston accent is a little more difficult for me to understand as well.
Like you mentioned, Boston, people tend to speak like English people in Boston. I mean, like people in Britain. Is it so?
I've noticed that, yes. It's not quite the same as an English or British accent, but it's closer to that, definitely.
Why do they do that?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I know that Boston is pretty close to New York. At least it's closer to New York than I am.
Mhm.
And I know that New York or New York City is kind of the international hub of the US. That's where people come in when they're coming in from other countries.
Mhm.
I also know that there used to be direct flights between New York and London.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that there might have been a huge influx of people from London that came in.
But there must have been some people living a long time back. The people living
Oh,
in
yeah.
Boston must have been influenced by those came from, England.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Boston is also one of our oldest cities in the US.
Yeah. So
So
how many languages are spoken? As far as I know, there is no official language in America.
there's no official language in the US.
So how many
And
languages are
uh,
spoken?
let me look that up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look that up. So I'm looking it up. So It says here that they're
Camera is
between.
off.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it says in what I just looked up that there are between 350 and 430 languages spoken in the US.
300.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So I think so. English, I believe, is the most widely spoken, but it is not the official language of the US.
Spanish.
Spanish is a big one. French is another one. I think German, all the Romance languages are probably very high up there because they're closely related to English.
Mhm.
Mandarin Chinese is a big one. Korean.
Mhm.
Something else though, a lot of indigenous languages, a lot of different Native American tribes, they have their own languages. A big one here in Oklahoma is Cherokee. We even have a Cherokee language major program.
Oh, you have in your college schools. You
Yeah.
know, 1/5 of American population is Indian. You know that?
Hey, baby.
Hey, talking to the guy again.
Yeah.
Okay. Haven't seen you for a while, so Maria.
Oh, of course. So, what percentage of the U.S. population is Indian?
1.5. Oh, I mean 1.5% population of America is Indian.
I'm not surprised. Did you know that people from India are the highest income earners in the US?
You know, Twitter just made an Indian guy. I mean, an Indian guy CEO of Twitter.
Yeah.
Agrawal. His name is some Agrawal. I am not sure, but he's from Indian origin.
That's cool.
And how many more are there? You know, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, Microsoft, IBM.
Well, in doctors, so many doctors are from India.
Do you know any of them personally?
So none of my doctors that I see right now are from India, but there is a doctor at my family practice clinic that's from India. His first name is Rajesh.
Rajesh.
And I can't remember his last name. I think it's.
You must be jealous. Hey, these Indians are coming and snatching our jobs. Why?
No, I don't think it's that. We have a shortage of doctors.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if a guy from India is smart enough to get into medical school and become a doctor, I don't judge, you know. I mean, medical school is hard and terrible and
Yeah. How many famous universities are there in America? I know two of them, Harvard and one more.
How many universities are there?
How many worldwide famous universities are there in America?
So I don't know the answer to that, but we do have like the Ivy Leagues.
I know Harvard and one more is also there. It slipped my mind.
So like Yale and Princeton, Brown, Cornell, University of Pennsylvania, Dartmouth. Those are the Ivy Leagues. Excuse me. Now, I didn't go to an Ivy League. Those are very selective schools. I went to Northeastern State University in Tahlequah, which is like an hour and a half from here. They are actually the college that has the Cherokee language major.
You know, I watch a lot of, you know, lots of American movies. You guys have different kind of cultures from other countries. Like, you know, in India, we have very diverse. India is very diverse. There are people from different regions. So most of the people living in the United States are Christian, right?
Yeah, that's actually going down,
Yeah.
but I would say a sizable majority, probably 70%, they were either raised Christian or consider themselves Christian, but
Mhm.
the number of people that are not religiously affiliated is growing.
Mhm.
I don't want to talk bad about religion, but I like
It's
that the
okay.
number of religiously unaffiliated is growing, because it was written in our Constitution, freedom of religion,
Mhm.
but there are many Christians who want to have control over the US culture. And I have a problem with that.
Everyone should, right? If somebody comes to my country and they try to spread casteism or something, I should have a problem, right? You can't.
So
Yeah.
if someone says bad things about your culture,
Yeah.
then you should have a problem with that. And
Everyone.
if someone tries to control how you do things, then you should have a problem with that.
I'm really
Yes.
fascinated by American culture, the way you grow, do things. I really wish I came to America once. Really. So yeah, it is the greatest country in the world. I think every facility is there you wish for.
We have a lot of good things here to see, and we have a lot of different types of food. I don't know. There's actually 2 Indian food places here in Tulsa.
No,
And I've only been to
I see. I like every food. It's not I only like, Indian food or British food. I like every food.
Have you tried funnel cakes?
I have not, but I would. I have seen people eating.
They're so good. If you're ever going to come to the US, come during a state fair time.
Okay.
We have different state fairs at different times in the US, but wherever you're going to go, pick
Mhm.
the time that the state fair is going to be there.
When I come,
And
I will meet you.
okay. And go to the state fair and try different types of food, but bring antacid because you will get heartburn very bad. but you'll love the food. Oh my god.
It's so
So
spicy.
it's very fatty.
Oh.
Yes.
The
And
way you grow your kids, I mean kids aged 18, after they are after they turn 18, they can separate from their family. Is it true?
it is true, but it's less likely to happen nowadays because it's a lot harder to get good jobs that pay well.
Mhm.
Many young people have a lot of debt. They rents are higher. There's a lot of income stagnation.
Mhm.
And so more younger people are choosing to stay at home with their parents
Mhm.
until they get married or until they find a significant relationship. I
Mhm.
myself didn't move out until I was in my late 20s.
Oh, so as I saw in movies, people, kids who are aged, who are 18 years of age, just leave their homes and start doing living on their own.
That's technically supposed to be how it is, but that's not usually how it is. And a lot of parents will still help their kids even after they turn 18.
Let me tell you a fun fact. If
Okay.
Let me tell you a fun fact. If you beat your kids and they may complain of you, hey, they may call police, right? But if in India, it's quite opposite of what happens in America. If you beat kids here in India, if they have done something terrible wrong, so if they call by chance police will also beat them. Why are you disturbing your kids? I mean your parents.
I think that discipline in the US has gotten kind of lackadaisical in recent decades. But I also like the emphasis on more gentle parenting methods, especially for kids that are autistic. Um, when I was growing up, conformity was the main thing. If you didn't conform to what was normal, that was bad. Well, now parents are letting their autistic children wear their headphones. They're letting their autistic children flap their hands, and they're not opposing their autistic kids so much. And I like that. I think it's important to teach your kids to be polite to others.
Yeah.
And I think American parents tend to fall short on that. But I think that gentle parenting works if it's done correctly. But I think that respect for elders must be encouraged.
Tell me one thing. Do you also find it difficult to understand some native people sometimes? I mean, they speak in such a terrible way or accent that I sometimes can't understand what they're trying to say.
So when you say native people, what
I don't
do
know
you
they
mean?
are native or just migrated, right? If you listen to African American people, they speak in a very different way.
Yeah. I don't have, because I tend to self-consciously imitate whatever I am hearing.
Mhm.
What I tend to do when I listen to someone is I mentally play back what they're saying,
Mhm.
and I put it in my own language,
Mhm.
so I'm better able to understand them.
So thank you so much for your time. That is it for the day. I'll see you some other time. Thank you so much.